be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else than your machine. Wasn't always just a single shade, a palette full of gray in reverie. And I can burn it brighter than the sun. I have a golden gun inside of me. Don't box me in, don't, or I'll leave. I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else. And if I fall behind, ignoring all the signs, if I lose the fight, I still rage against the night. Don't box I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else than your machine.
Wednesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Wednesday. Welcome, everybody. Derry Bennett, Quad Bennett, welcome, welcome. Happy bye week, September 16 to 23. Welcome, Michael Hassler. Hope everyone's having an awesome day. Thank you to the folks on YouTube who keep liking the stream. I appreciate it. 258 of you have subscribed on the YouTube. Look at that. All right, folks, we got to be quick, folks. Thank you all for hanging out. I appreciate it. You guys are what makes this channel grow. Before we get started, a couple of usual announcements. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. It really does help us out. Follow us here on Twitch. Subscribe on the YouTube channel. Keep liking the stream. I appreciate it. Consider joining the Discord. There's a lot of awesome people on the Discord. And if you want to support the channel, there are many different ways. Consider checking out the merch store, folks. It's a brand new merch store that just launched not too long ago. And a couple months ago. Actually, 2 months. 2 months ago exactly. And you can also tip your streamer. Look at that. All right, folks. Also, before we get started, if you find something interesting, funny, clip it, and we can use it to post it on social media. And of course, I'll credit whoever does the clipping. I think we should probably start here.
Deal with this in the sort of most earnest way. Trying to deal with this in the sort of most earnest way possible. But here is J.D. Vance, who literally the day before was on a Sunday talk show claiming it doesn't matter if we're talking about curry or eating fried chicken. Who cares what Kamala Harris eats in the White House? I mean,
just another food he came up with right off the cuff.
Randomly.
Who knows? Well, why? Maybe he loves fried chicken.
Frog Foibles, welcome. I can't clip on my phone, but I'll see. Really? They haven't, made that a thing for the phone? You know, you would think at this point Twitch would have their stuff together.
But also, just a day after he had said, look, if we need to make up stories so that the press focuses their ire on non-white immigrants who are here legally.
That's what he said on the Sunday shows, the Sunday Trump was golfing.
Right,
Yes.
okay, yeah, exactly. A day before he said this. It is, the issue is really not the hypocrisy. The issue is that this guy is trying to run away for the implications of the things he actually says. And the best way, or really the only way these guys know how to function is the best defense is a good offense. So they're trying to change the topic to this.
So what is ClickUp? ClickUp is an all-in-one productivity software where you can manage everything and anything related to your work.
I'm good.
I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, 100 miles away from where this went down. But I do think that we should take this opportunity to call for a reduction in the ridiculous and inflammatory political rhetoric coming from too many corners of our politics.
Yeah, shut up. Dude, spare me with that nonsense. Your rhetoric, your political rhetoric is inspiring bomb threats in your own state, dude. Okay? So please, don't talk to us about toning down the turning down the temperature. Okay? Because that is absurd coming from this guy. And look at all the freaking clowns clapping too. That's what's more upsetting, honestly. Like, that's what's more upsetting. The fact that like people actually like buy this hook, line, and sinker.
Oh my God.
Look, we can disagree with one another, we can debate one another, but we cannot tell the American people that one candidate is a fascist, and if he's elected, it is going to be the end of American democracy. We cannot, as a...
Dude, those are just straight facts, okay? Those are just straight facts. Donald Trump is incredibly anti-democratic and has no qualms with doing away with democratic institutions. He loathes them because they prohibit him from doing what he wants. And it is a fact that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are a fascist party. Period. That is not an exaggeration. That is not a made-up fabrication. That's just what you are. You have put yourself in this position, dude. People are just calling a spade a spade.
As a person affiliated with Kamala Harris has said that we need to, quote, eliminate Donald J. Trump. A New York Democratic congressman has said that in the past. If you tell the American people that this person is the end of democracy, if you tell the American people that this person needs to be eliminated, most of them, thank God, are going to ignore you, but some crazy person is going to...
So, like, this is like so freaking hilarious that they actually understand what stochastic terrorism is. So it can only lead me to think that these people know and understand what they are doing, right? Because he's demonstrating that he knows what stochastic terrorism is. Okay?
To take matters into their own hands and actually listen to the crazy rhetoric that you're putting out there. And I know it's popular on a lot of corners.
Now, pause it for 1 second. A couple of things I want to say to this. One, I think there is an argument that stochastic, is that what it is?
Yep, stochastic.
Stochastic terrorism is real. I mean, we have seen examples of this, and it's nice that Vance is coming out and speaking to those specific instances where we have seen people who are fans and followers of right-wing YouTubers like Ben Shapiro, I don't know, YouTube, whatever, show hosts like Ben Shapiro and Tim Pool, who have gone on to commit terrorist attacks, and that Vance, at the very least, seems to believe what I think a lot of people feel, which is that when Tim Pool, talks about a civil war over and over again and this type of stuff, and then we see people go out and act upon this and do violent things, that there is a connection. That seems to be what Vance is saying. And
right. So, like, the point being is like they understand what stochastic terrorism is. They understand what stochastic terrorism is. So that tells me that what they're doing is on purpose. Because if they understand this concept and are able to describe it very precisely, actually, then I can only conclude that all this rhetoric that J.D. Vance has said and Donald Trump has said is on purpose. I mean, plain and simple.
I have to say, I mean, you know,
We can agree on that.
we can agree on that front. When somebody goes in and attack,
Of course, then they'll do like this Orwellian Orwellian thing where they'll say that like what we do is not stochastic terrorism. Tina with rating with a party of 26. Welcome everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome everybody. Folks, if you don't know who I am a Difficult Truth. I do the news, I do the politics. We are here Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We're just getting started. Here. Thank you, Tina. Hope you're doing all right. And thank you for bringing your wonderful community here. If you enjoy your stay, folks, consider dropping a follow. Thank you. And a huge shout out to Tina. Thank you so much. I appreciate the raid. Yeah, we do the news and politics. Well, my antidepressants have been a little cocky lately, so strap in.
Was it Sikhs up in Canada, and literally repeats the same rhetoric that Ben Shapiro did. I think there's an argument there.
Thank you for the follow, a roaming Goliath as well. I appreciate it. Thank you. Give me 1 second, folks. Just like 1 second, I promise. Let me just get something here. It'll be quick, I promise. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Let us continue.
But there is no evidence that the attempted would-be assassination of Trump that took place on Sunday and the attempted assassination from a couple of months ago had anything to do with that.
Correct.
But
correct. Like it's really freaking like telling that they're making this whole hoopla, this whole thing about stochastic terrorism, without realizing it's actually them just telling on themselves, right? Because Sam's right. This has nothing to do with democratic rhetoric at all. But it's very telling that they are the ones that brought that up.
More American gun culture.
Yeah. But we can see, however, the implications of, well, let's go back to this here, that first line that Vance said, because I think that's really telling.
Please don't skip and watch the end. Just 1 minute and just $1. Enough to help my family and any family asked you.
That's so freaking sad.
The idea of political violence, violent rhetoric, and what it can lead to. Because, or any type of rhetoric where you're basically, making stuff up. Look, who wants to be living around your neighbors if they're stealing your cats and your dogs and eating them? That's not neighborly. It's a little bit scary. Go ahead.
That one candidate is a fascist, and if he's elected, it is going to be the end
let's
of
go to the
American
beginning.
democracy. We cannot, as a person affiliated with Kamala Harris.
No. Can we go back to the beginning? The beginning of this clip.
We have I know the hypocrisy stuff is low-hanging fruit, but Trump called Kamala Harris a, quote, radical left, Marxist, communist, fascist 3 days ago.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Oh, man. But, well, to be fair, as Trump said, no, I don't talk to J.D. Vance. I don't communicate with J.D. Vance.
And then on September 5th...
So maybe they weren't... maybe they weren't coordinating on that point.
Called her a communist fascist. So if fascist is beyond the pale, he should probably give a call to the guy at the top of the ticket.
Opportunity to call for a reduction in the ridiculous and inflammatory political rhetoric coming from too many corners of our politics.
Okay, so...
No, just one specific one, actually. Just one specific one, actually.
Let's just say ridiculous and inflammatory rhetoric. This guy went on television the day before he said this and admitted that he had made up the story of cats and dogs, or at the very least, supposedly heard it from one of his constituents. He can't name that person, and did absolutely no fact checking, and memed it enough and presented it enough on Twitter that his presidential candidate said it in front of 75 million Americans. And now, days later, this is where we're at in Springfield, Ohio.
Right, like there's a direct connection, like A to B to the rhetoric of the Republican Party, okay? At the top ticket of the Republican Party, both Trump and Vance, there's a direct link from A to B that their rhetoric is literally inspiring bomb threats, okay? There are schools that have been needed to shut down and evacuated because of these people. Kamikaze, welcome. So, yeah, please, spare me with the nonsense of like, oh, well, there's all corners of the political aisle needs to turn down the rhetoric. No, man, you need to turn down the rhetoric. You're the one saying inflammatory and ridiculous things that are leading to actual real life events. They're spilling into the real world. This isn't freaking 4chan, JD Vance. This is real. Or rather, it's not just limited to Twitter and 4chan, okay? Your people are doing this.
I want to make that very, very clear. None of these had any validity at all.
That's Governor Mike DeWine just hours ago talking about the continued threat of violence in the city of Springfield. 33 threats, all determined to be a hoax. He announced that highway patrol troopers will be sweeping school buildings every morning and stay at those schools throughout the day.
Now, we know threats have been made to public schools, hospitals, and city services, and all since the presidential debate last Tuesday.
Yeah, you would think that this would immediately call for like a retraction and a huge apology and like acknowledgement of just how much damage you've caused to the community just because of your like comments. You would think that under normal circumstances, you would have some type of introspection, right? But no. What is this, 20 years ago? No, a couple days ago.
where former President Trump spoke about immigration in Springfield. The first threat happened on Thursday, September 12th, when City Hall, BMV locations, and 2 schools were threatened. In the next 3 days, a middle school and 2 elementary schools received threats. 2 hospitals and local universities all receiving threats as well. Now, this is the 5th day in a row that businesses and public offices have received threats in the Springfield area. So thank you for joining us for 10 TV.
Yeah, thank you, J.D. Vance. Thank you, Donald Trump.
Yeah. After
fascism
all that
is here.
libel that they were putting out there about Haitian immigrants.
For coming to the rescue of the citizens of Springfield.
And it's just like, J.D. Vance, wasn't your whole thing personal responsibility and how the people of Appalachia, it's just a cultural virus.
Yeah, like none of that is a thing. These people have no principles, and so insofar as those principles that they pretend to believe in, helps them achieve power, right? They don't believe in that concept of personal responsibility, only as so far as they can use that as a way of getting power. Republicans telling the community they're harming. We want to protect you from all these tax-paying immigrants. Stop resisting. Yeah. Very, very much protecting the community by inspiring bomb threats. That's funny. But yeah, so the point being is that, like, yeah, they don't care. They actually don't believe in personal responsibility. They don't care. They don't care about any of that. Not at all.
They are impoverished in this way. They just need to help themselves and own up to things and
stop
work
blaming
hard.
others like capitalism.
Yeah. How about you stop blaming others? Because if you can't own up to your own inflammatory rhetoric, where we saw the results of it within days, bomb threats, stochastic terrorism,
Yeah, just to be clear again, like, there is no... What makes this, like... The point is you can't engage with this. There's nothing to engage with here. Because ultimately, they don't believe in any of that. So, like, calling them out, like, yeah, of course, it's hypocritical. But, like, they don't care. It's not necessary for this to function, right? Because they don't care about how rational things are. They don't care about how logical or if it makes any sense or if it's hypocritical or not or if it's actually principled or not. They don't care about any of that. As Roman Goliath just points out, they believe in power, full stop. They want to be the ones dictating the terms, and anything that serves that end is valid. Correct. And ultimately it doesn't matter. Exactly. Ultimately it doesn't matter. They actually don't even believe they actually don't even believe in the Second Amendment, which is supposed to be like their like biblical, unmovable position. They don't even believe in that. Only insofar as it serves the end goal of power. That's it. So yeah, like it's just that you can't engage with them from the hypocrisy angle because they don't care. They know it's hypocritical. It's just not necessary. It doesn't matter.
Towards the people of your own state.
Citizens you represent.
You're supposed to be a public servant instead of being essentially a venture capitalist vampire. But that's exactly who he is and who the Republican Party represents. And I want to thank the Trump campaign for continuing to put out the guy with the most embarrassing unfavorables that a vice presidential candidate has ever had from the get-go, and making him the point person for the entire campaign, sending him out on every Sunday talk show while Trump golfs. I'm in favor of this strategy. Trump can keep doing Twitter spaces where he hawks crypto and send out J.D. Vance in the most visible places on television in this campaign. Keep it up, buddies. You guys are doing a great job.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Hey, we got another YouTube subscriber. 259, folks. Look at that. We're one subscriber away from 260. What Emma said, 1,000%. Yeah. Yeah. Shifting gears here, folks, real quick.
One of our students started the school's Gay Straight Alliance. Tim agreed to serve as faculty advisor because he knew how impactful it would be to have a football coach involved.
My antidepressant never had a chance. Don't worry, we're gonna do some wholesome content, okay? We're gonna take a wholesome a moment for some wholesome content.
That was a snippet from Tim Walz's introduction before his DNC speech, and I think that by now it's pretty well known that he started a Gay Straight Alliance in 1999 at Mankato High School, but I did want to take some time to dig a little bit deeper and explore that part of his past, because when you look into his past, you really begin to understand that he wasn't just merely supportive of his LGBTQ plus students. He actually took the time to mentor them and offer them guidance that profoundly changed their lives.
Yeah, like an actual teacher would, right? Like an actual teacher, an educator would. Like that's the kind of stuff that you need to be, you need to have to be an educator, to want to be a good steward, because it's a great responsibility, right? This is quite literally like the future. And you want to make sure that you are a good steward and a good guide.
To say that he was supportive is an understatement, because this man was basically a second parent to his queer students, and an underreported part of the story is that his wife Gwen was equally as impactful at the time, and this was at a time when it was very popular to hate gay people. Even other teachers weren't interested in overtly supporting LGBTQ plus students because it was just toxic, right? But both Tim and Gwen, they were supportive anyway, and the stories from their former queer students are genuinely touching. So I want to start with Jacob Rayton. So he knew Tim Walz because of the Gay Straight Alliance, but Gwen was actually his teacher. Now, in the clip that you're about to see, he's going to explain his experience as one of her students.
I came out, I was the first openly gay student at Mankato West High School, and I came out in 1999. In 1997, though, I had a class with Gwen Walz. She taught English literature. And on the first day of class, she stood up and said that this was a safe place for LGBT students. It meant the world to me. I had never heard a teacher from the front of the classroom talk about gay and lesbian issues. My heart was literally beating out of my chest. And so when I came out 2 years later, the first person I told was a friend, the second person I told was my sister, and the third person I told was Gwen Walz. Both Tim and Gwen were incredibly supportive of their gay students. And they modeled values of inclusivity and respect. And that helped not just me. I was bullied in high school. It helped not just me, but it also, I think, helped the bully. It showed the bully a better path forward.
I cannot tell you how astonishing it is that his wife was that openly supportive of gay students in 1997. In that same year, Minnesota lawmakers passed a bill banning same-sex marriages, but yet she was there saying, I support you. This is a safe classroom for you. She risked being ostracized. She risked being outcasted for doing so, but she did it anyway because she cared. Now, he mentioned that he was bullied, but the extent to which he was bullied is genuinely shocking. As the New York Times explains, after rumors began to circulate about Rayton being gay, he was actually threatened, and the F slur was written in giant letters and chalk in his driveway, and his mom started getting ominous letters about him, one of them saying that he'd be better off dead. Also, his car windows were even smashed in the school parking lot. So he went through hell. Now, on top of that, when he came out to his parents, they took him to see their pastor, and he told them that being gay was sinful and that God could help him become straight, of course, right? Now, thankfully, his parents were seemingly supportive, but he disagreed with his parents about whether or not he should come out. He wanted to come out, and his parents did not want him to come out. Now, it doesn't seem like they wanted him to stay in the closet for homophobic reasons. The reason why they were horrified is because they heard about the story in 1998 of Matthew Shepard being murdered. He was an openly gay college student that was killed, and they didn't want to see their son suffer the same fate. So, I mean, that makes sense if you're a parent, right? So it was a devastating time all around where he wanted to come out, but was genuinely fearful for his life for good reason. But Gwen Walls helped him come out during this time, and Tim Walz was there for him to act as a mentor. And the fact that Tim and Gwen were able to get through to his bully goes to show you that they went to bat for this kid.
Yeah, which is wild. Just... She'd have been fired at my school. I'm from West Texas. Yeah, no doubt.
But he's not the only one, because there's also Seth Elliott Meyer, who was a fellow member of the GSA with Jacob and was openly bisexual. And he told MSNBC that he expected to hate Tim Walz because he was a coach and was also a hunter. And Seth described himself as a punk rock kid who was anti-everything. So he expected to just not vibe with Walz. But, quote, I had a really hard time in high school, and I felt like a lot of teachers wanted me to be someone else, Meyer said. Walz, however, was in a minority of teachers who wanted me to be okay with who I was and speak my mind, and whether it was with GSA stuff or anything else, was happy to be questioned and challenged because he wanted to question and challenge things. And this right here,
FMO Twist. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Welcome.
Is significant because, again, we're talking about the late 90s where LGBTQ plus people were pariahs. And whenever a queer teen would come out, they'd have a million different people in their ear telling them to not be themselves. In fact, Seth also explained that he and 4 other GSA members didn't even want to be seen together because they didn't want to make themselves targets. But Tim Walz told him, listen, how about this? Fuck that. Be yourself. I'm paraphrasing. Tim Walz didn't say that specifically to him, but he said, listen, you should be yourself.
Every new thing I learned about Tim Walz only makes me like him more. I agree. I agree.
And don't just be yourself. You should be okay with yourself and stand up for yourself. This is what Tim Walz told him. And at this time, even if you weren't homophobic.
Yeah, pretty rare for a politician. Like, imagine, like, this really is like a pretty rare pretty rare for a politician. You have somebody who doesn't have conflicts of interest by choice, not because he couldn't, but by choice. And in fact, led the charge when he was in Congress to prevent other Congress members from benefiting from the stock market. And also a pretty freaking wholesome dude who actually, like, literally just cares about people in general. It seems so. And he has been a public servant from literally his entire career. He has been all about public service. I mean, yeah, it's pretty freaking rare, indeed.
Phobic, you had a social incentive to act like you were a homophobe because anything short of unequivocally condemning gay people made you suspicious as well. So other teachers were probably not supportive because if they were, people might suspect that they were gay. You know, they could in turn be pariahs too. But that wasn't even a calculation for Tim Walz. He was telling the student, no, you should be yourself. Be proud of yourself. That's amazing. This goes to show you that Tim Walz is just a good person. Now, there's more. Quote, Emily Scott, 41, said she attended GSA meetings in Mankato West from 2000 to 2001 during her junior year because she had a crush on one of the founding members. But she knew Walz best through a biannual trip to China in the summer of 2001 that he organized for students. That trip and something Walz said to her on it changed her life, said Scott, who now lives in St. Paul, Minnesota. We were on a river boat cruise in Gulen, and I turned to Mr. Walz and said, I love this. I love China. I want to do this for the rest of my life, Scott recalled. And then he set up the next 10 years of my life. He said, Emily, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to University of Wisconsin at Madison and major in Chinese, and then you're going to go to China and get a job. And that is exactly what I did for the next 10 years of my life. And she ended up eventually living in China for 10 years. So Tim Walz put her on a path to fulfill her dream. And to say that a teacher was able to do that to put their student on a path that helped them achieve what they wanted. I mean, that's what teachers are supposed to do. But these kinds of teachers who are that inspirational, I feel like they're pretty rare. Like I've had teachers that really had an impact on me, but you can tell Tim Walz was one of those teachers where he just went above and beyond. Now, there was also another student. Her name was Larissa Beck. She attended the GSA meetings as a straight ally, which credit to her because, again, this was a very homophobic time, and Walz was her 10th grade teacher. Now, she says that she actually bumped into Walz 20 years later at the state capitol when he was the governor, and she said she could not believe that he not only remembered her, but remembered her name. She was touched by it, she said. Now, she was there on behalf of disabled people since she went, on to work in disability services. Now, I cannot stress enough, these types of stories are really rare in politics.
Yeah.
And I say this because usually when somebody runs for higher office, the only time we hear from people who know them personally from their past is when they want to tell us how evil they were, right?
Yeah.
They want to tell us about the terrible things they've done. But Tim Walz...
Yeah, that's so freaking true. Like, usually when you have these type of, like, expose interviews or whatever, it's usually to get... to air some dirty laundry, so to speak.
Has students coming out with these amazing stories so we all know how great of a person he is. That is so rare. And what's great is that he's clearly still the same guy. In the way that he was a mentor to his queer students as a teacher, he's an amazing champion for trans rights now as a governor. But before he was a governor, he was a congressman. And when he ran in 2006, the families that he helped, like Jacob Rayton's family, they were still in contact with him. And they told him, listen, Tim, we know that, you have to be homophobic, essentially. You don't have to be publicly pro-gay. You can toe the line and support civil unions or whatever, because that's what all Democrats were doing. Even Obama did that, right? So they were saying, we understand that. We know where your heart's at. So Jacob is going to explain how Tim Walz approached this issue while running for Congress. Because, again, this was a tough time, and Democrats, like cowards, weren't willing to explicitly endorse same-sex marriage. At least not a lot of them were. Here's how Tim Walz navigated that issue.
There's a story, actually, when he ran for Congress the first time. He ran on a position of being for gay marriage in 2006. This was one of the most anti-gay years in the history of American politics, but he came up for gay marriage. My mom actually said to him, Tim, this is before he had announced that he was going to run, she said, Tim, you don't have to be for gay marriage for our family. But he said, Rondi, I got to look my gay students in the eye as I'm for gay marriage. And so not only was he for gay marriage, there's a story where he's at a Harley-Davidson biker rally, and they ask him about helmet laws, and they say, are you for or against helmet laws? And he says, well, I think it's stupid not to wear a helmet, but I believe in personal freedom. I don't think I'm not for helmet laws. Probably stupid for me to be eating as many cheeseburgers as I eat, but I'm not for the government telling me how many cheeseburgers to eat. But if the government shouldn't tell you not to wear a helmet, and if they shouldn't tell me how many cheeseburgers I should eat, it also shouldn't be able to tell your gay neighbor that they can't get married. So he would go to a Harley-Davidson biker debate and talk about gay marriage. So that's just his skill. He has the ability to talk about progressive issues and make them in a way that all of us can understand.
That is amazing.
Yeah. It's a good point. Tim Walz is awfully nice when he rescued my cat from a burning building on his way to deliver Christmas presents to the orphanage. True story.
Remember, Obama, when he was running for president in 2008, even he was against gay marriages. But Tim Walz in 2006 was saying, you know what? No, I'm for it because I'm principled. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to take a position for political expediency. I am going to say what I think. And I think that same-sex people should have equal rights. And I need to stress that he was running in a deep red district and he won. He beat a Republican congressman who was in that seat for 12 years. It was a major upset, and he did this while running on issues like gay marriage. I think it just goes to show you how unnecessary these calculations that politicians make are. Now, ironically, Kamala Harris is suddenly pro-fracking because she wants to win Pennsylvania, and she's also pro-border wall because public opinion has soured on immigrants. But Tim Walz already proved that you don't have to do that. It's a skill issue. You can communicate your case to the American people, and even if they disagree, maybe they'll accept where you're coming from. And I hope that Kamala Harris ends up learning from her running mate, because if the American public doesn't agree with you, it is your job as a leader to bring them to the correct position. And this is important because if politicians capitulated to public opinion on everything, we'd never have same-sex marriage. We'd never have any civil right for that matter. Tim Walz knows this. And in an ad that he cut in 2018 when he was running for governor, he talked about how he got otherwise homophobic people to come around on LGBTQ plus rights. Let's listen.
Schools are microcosms of society, and in many cases, it's your last opportunity to share that socioeconomically, racially, and across the board.
That's pretty freaking true. Yep.
I had students come to me who were concerned that there was an uptick in some bullying towards our gay and lesbian students. And this is in the mid-90s. They asked if I would be interested in helping start a gay-straight alliance group. My answer was absolutely. And I recognized my responsibility in that. You have an older, white, straight, married male football coach who's deeply concerned that these students are treated fairly and that there's no bullying. And the idea that my players would be interested in coming to that and learn and to speak, to create a culture in a school that was welcoming, open, and understanding was something Gwen and I always strove for. Much the same way that as the senior enlisted soldier in Congress, when it came time to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, my job was to go and convince a dozen or so Republicans that this was the right thing to do. We did that, and I'm very proud of those 15 who joined us. We have transgender troops serving honorably right now, decorated warriors, and they see their commander-in-chief belittle them. Brave Americans who wish to serve this nation should be allowed to do so, should be respected, and certainly should never expect to have an attack on their basic patriotisms or their basic humanity come from the White House. It's our pledge here to make sure that doesn't happen. I certainly didn't serve 24 years to watch a fellow veteran be belittled for doing their job, and I will stand in that breach every day. Lots of people are making promises about a progressive agenda. Peggy Flanagan and I are the only team for governor and lieutenant governor who can actually deliver on those progressive promises. And we can because we've done it in the past.
Spoiler. Yeah, and you know what? He kind of did, actually. He did a couple of good things in Minnesota.
Alert, he absolutely delivered on a progressive agenda as governor. So yeah, I wanted to talk about his longtime advocacy for LGBTQ plus people because it speaks to a quality that we don't often see with politicians: courage. He understands that politics is about compromise, yes, but that doesn't mean that you have to compromise your values and sell out certain communities or throw communities under a bus to get power and affect change.
Correct.
That doesn't mean that he has a perfect record or that he's a deity, and it doesn't mean that I won't have disagreements with him if he is vice president, but I think that having someone in power like that who is willing to listen and change, who genuinely seems to want to do good, having somebody in the ear of the president does give me a lot of hope. So in conclusion, Tim Walz was pro-LGBTQ before it was cool, and I think that genuinely says a lot about him as a person.
I agree. Tim Walz keeps cooking like this and he'll end world hunger. Yeah. I wish we had more politicians like that. I wish we had more principled politicians. Unfortunately, nowadays, that's a pretty freaking tall order. This is what we need. Yep. We need a Congress full of Tim Walz. Okay, I think we need to start right here. I got some clips lined up. Here we have fund the Tim Walz clothing program. Here we have a theocratic fascist Matt Walsh keep in mind that his job is a podcaster, okay? His job is a podcaster. Telling people that you should not take a sick day as an adult. That taking a sick day as an adult is bad and embarrassing. This is also the same type of people that pretend to be for the working class. Okay? Cognizant welcome, partially because money, partially because if you allow a principal to peek out, you get 100 death threats the next hour.
A side note on the sick day thing is and you know, this will be unpopular with, especially with younger people, but
and the working class, you know, people you seemingly can't relate to despite trying to.
You shouldn't be using sick days. Okay, I've used sick days maybe twice in 7 years, and in both of those cases, because I lost my voice and I couldn't speak, you know, you can't blame me for that. It's impossible to do a podcast when you can't speak.
Yeah, like, my dude, you do a podcast, man. Like, taking a sick day is not just for yourself, too, by the way. Taking a sick day isn't just for you. It's so that you don't get other people in the office sick either. Careful, Matt, you're gonna lick a hole in that boot. You took 2 sick days?
And even then, I still, and anyone who watches, has been watching the show for a while, you know this, I still came into the office and recorded a video.
I still came into the office and spread my germs and potentially got other people sick. But yes, go on, Matt.
With subtitles when I lost my voice, if you recall. But generally speaking, again, I know this is unpopular, but sick days are for children, okay?
They're not. They're for human beings, okay? You are not a freaking robot, okay? Take your damn sick days. That's what they're for. Then Matt is a child? Yes. Although, to be frank, that's an insult to children. But yes. Flexing a toxic work ethic is so capitalism brain. Right, which is exactly what he's selling. That's exactly what he's selling. Correct.
They're for kids in school who are trying to stay home so they don't have to take a test that day.
No, kids can, and this is true, kids absolutely do get sick quite often. And it's also true that you don't want to get other children sick, so you keep them home, Matt. Kamikaze subscribing with a tier 1 sub. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate it. Thank you. I saw a study years ago that calculated the lack of paid sick days in fast food leading to working sick and spreading it to customers cost US billions in GDP. Yeah, I mean, that freaking tracks. That freaking tracks.
Like, with rare exception, taking a sick day as an adult should be pretty embarrassing for you. Calling your boss and saying, sorry, I can't come in today, my tummy hurts, is humiliating. You need to be at work.
No, it's not. Take your sick days, folks, okay? Take your sick days. It's okay. And it doesn't even have to be like a physically, it doesn't even have to be like physical. You know, if you need a freaking day off, you need a freaking day off, okay? Use your sick days. Use your paid time off. That's what it's there for. Thank you, Kamikaze, I appreciate it.
Okay? Adults don't have time to be sick. They don't have time for it. That's. I was just having this conversation with my kids recently, actually, because I was kind of under the weather, and my kids were aware of that, and they said, "Well, so why are you going to work?" I said, "Because I don't have time to be sick. Okay, I don't know, I can't be. I don't have time." "But you are sick." "Yeah, but I don't have time for it." So it's like I'm operating as though I'm not.
Wow, big man, Matt Walsh, taking a day off, boss. I have chemo treatment. What are you, a child? The problem is most workers no longer get sick days. That's also a good point. That's also a good point. If you're even lucky enough to have sick days, yeah, that's a good point. So in other words, he showed up, got paid, and did nothing. Yep. Yes, boss, I'm 11. I believe it was yesterday or the day before we talked about Republicans voting down the IVF bill, and here we have Tom Cotton attempting very poorly to pretzel himself out of this, but unfortunately, as it turns out, it doesn't work very well.
Well, Caitlin, again, IVF is not at risk in any state, and the Alabama example proves the point. The legislature acted promptly to change what was an old law to ensure access.
Right. Like, just freaking, like, he can't even properly pretzel himself logically.
Because of Supreme Court decision. That happens all the time.
That imperiled access to IVF.
Courts make decisions. Caitlin, courts make decisions interpreting laws, often old laws that haven't been updated to reflect changed circumstances all the time, and legislatures come back and they change those laws. That's what happened here. Well, Caitlin, again, IVF is not at risk in any state, and the Alabama example proves the point. The legislature acted promptly to change what was an old law to ensure access to...
Right. Like, that's it. Yeah, leave it the F alone. Republicans want to be at every single aspect of your life, from the bedroom to even up to and even including how you want children. So if you make the decision of wanting children, Republicans want to be at that decision table as well, and they can't help themselves. They can't help themselves. Okay, I think we have one more clip. Here we have professional clown Jimmy Dore. What I can only describe as making the case for Trump. Let me be clear. Jimmy Dore's job for years at this point now has been to facilitate fascism. Okay? That is Jimmy Dore's job. People like Russell Brand, people like Jimmy Dore, their job is to facilitate fascism. And the way they do it is under this false veneer of populism, where they're pretending that they are against the establishment, or they're pretending that they're against the oligarchy, when in reality they're actually propping it up. And you can tell that this is the goal because, like, look who they're effectively propping up. Take it away, Jimmy Doorknob.
And that's what's interesting and exciting to me, not to change the subject, about Bobby Kennedy, when he gave a speech at a Trump rally, and he talked about getting the corruption out of FDA and the CDC and our captured our regulatory agencies. And
just to be clear, like Jimmy Dork, just to be clear, RFK Jr. is not actually interested in following up on any real, like, corruption that may or may not be happening on the FDA, because I'm sure that's probably a problem, especially when you have special interest, you know. But they're not actually interested in getting to the root of corruption. What they mean is spreading like nonsense, like in the case of RFK, is like spreading like this nonsense anti-vax stuff. That's what they mean about rooting out corruption. When it comes to propping up the oligarchy, well, who did RFK Jr. ultimately end up bending the knee to? Got to get paid if you have no talent. Cater to the least common denominator. Indeed.
Fighting big agra and cleaning up our water and our food supply and fighting childhood obesity. And what's the important thing is, people say to me, well, Jim, you don't really think Trump's going to do that. I go, it doesn't matter to me if Trump's going to do that.
Yeah. So that's the point, right? Like, you don't, that's the point. You're supporting and propping up people who are supporting and propping up Trump, and you consistently make pro-Trump arguments because ultimately that's the whole game here. Your whole game is to facilitate fascism. That's it.
As much as it matters that there was a stadium full of Republican voters who were cheering on traditional Democratic values, things that I would cheer on, they were cheering on. And that's the thing that's...
What traditional Democratic values are you talking about, dude? Like, he's not going to expand on that, obviously.
Threatening to the establishment, Dr. Drew, is that if the populist left and the populist right realize we have more in common that divides us.
Yeah, let me stop you right there. There's no such thing as a populist right. That's just fascist. Okay, you see how that comes full circle. There's no such thing as a populist right. Okay. Because every time you try to peel the layer back, being, you want to talk about workers' rights. No, we actually mean white workers' rights, as J.D. Vance puts it. Literally, that's how he talks. So, no, they're not actually talking about the working class. So, no, there is no such thing as a populist right. It's all a... it's all fake. It's a veneer. I love how his logo in the background illustrates he's in an echo chamber and he's trying to empty his own head. True. Jimmy, you are the lube that facilitates of democracy.
Then we could come together and fight the oligarchy, because that's what's needed right now to save our democracy.
Yeah, okay. Jimmy, my brother in Christ, okay? Who is running at the top of the Republican ticket that you are propping up right now? Okay, like this is how you know this is all freaking just nonsense, right? Because the top of the Republican ticket is a literal billionaire oligarch, okay, and a venture capitalist, okay. That's how you know this is all nonsense, and what he's selling to would-be potential lefties who somehow, because there are people who believe this. Who are left wing. There are people who actually believe Jimmy Dore is being legitimate. But no. Who do you think is at the top of the Republican ticket, man? So no, this is not about fighting the oligarchy. This is not about fighting capitalism. Okay? This is the exact opposite.
Democracy, and they don't want you to know that. They want to keep dividing us.
Who's they? Dude, we know who these people are. We know who Donald Trump is. We know who J.D. Vance is. We know who RFK Jr. is. And yeah, we know who Kamala Harris is and Tim Walz are.
That's and there's a million ways that they do that. And that's what's interesting and exciting to me, not to change the subject.
It's wild. That's wild that this dude still has legitimacy. It's wild that people still listen to him. And it's even wilder that there are left-leaning people who think that this guy is legit. This reminds me of that Key and Peele sketch where the guy pretends to not see the guy who insulted his woman at the club. Show yourself, ghost. All right, folks, we got some headlines to go through. Yesterday we went over the story about the one woman who died because she couldn't access the medical care that she needed because of this abortion ban. Apparently, there were actually two women who passed because they couldn't get the medical care that they needed. At least 2 women in Georgia died after they couldn't access legal abortions and timely medical care in their state, ProPublica has found. In her final hours, Amber Nicole Thurman, this is the first woman who we talked about yesterday, suffered from a grave infection that her suburban Atlanta hospital was well equipped to treat. She had taken abortion pills and encountered a rare complication. She had not expelled all of the fetal tissue from her body. She showed up at the Piedmont Henry Hospital in need of a routine procedure to clear it from her uterus, called a dilation and curettage, or DNC. But just that summer, her state had made performing the procedure a felony with few exceptions. Any doctor who violated this new Georgia law could be prosecuted and face up to a decade in prison. That's just absurd. That is just absurd. Thurman waited in pain in a hospital bed, worried what would happen to her 6-year-old son, as doctors monitored her infection spreading, her blood pressure sinking, and organs beginning to fail. It took 20 hours for doctors to finally operate, but by then it was too late. The otherwise healthy 28-year-old medical assistant who had her sights set on nursing school should not have died, as an official state committee recently concluded. This is fascism, indeed. Tasked with examining pregnancy-related deaths to improve maternal health, the experts, including 10 doctors, deemed hers preventable and said that the hospital's delay in performing the critical procedure had a large impact on her fatal outcome. Of course. Because absolutely they could have treated her, but were unable to, as they had to manage the legal problems here, because if they did, that doctor could go to jail. Where's the screaming soundboard? I do need a soundboard, but I got you. There you go. And they're almost certainly...
We've talked about the Fifth Circuit over and over and over again over the past couple of years. This is where...
Shut it, Samuel. Do you have I did everything right and they indicted me. No, I need to get that sound bite. I need to get that sound bite. I need to get a few others, and I need to get an actual way of putting it all together. Eventually that'll be a thing. I used to have one. I used to have, excuse me, I used to have a soundboard, and it ultimately did not work because the tablet I was using it on, it couldn't handle it eventually. Very old tablet. Committees like the one in Georgia set up in each state often operate with a 2-year lag behind the cases they examine, meaning that experts are only now beginning to delve into the deaths that took place after the Supreme Court overturned the federal right to abortion. Thurman's case marks the first time an abortion-related death officially deemed preventable is coming to public light. ProPublica will share the story in the second in the coming days. We are also exploring other deaths that may have not been reviewed but appear to be connected to abortion bans. Doctors warned state legislatures women would die if medical procedures sometimes needed to save lives became illegal, right? And like, man, the other day, I saw this. I can't remember his name because like he's such a smug piece of shit that like I'm just not gonna remember his name. But I want to say he was a Trump surrogate, or he worked on the Trump campaign. He does like these very like short videos, and he's usually pretty freaking smug. He did one where he's like, oh, and he's usually doing these smug videos as he's eating something. Man, I can't remember his name, and I don't, he's not that like important he's not worthy, I should say, to even like take up enough space to remember his name. But nonetheless, I saw a video that he did where he was doing his smug, short content where he was eating something, and he said, oh, well, where are all the women that Kamala was saying that were bleeding out in parking lots? And another woman stitched that video and said, hey, we exist. But yeah, that reminds me of that video, because like motherfucker, literally women have been dying because of people like you, essentially. It could be a lot of them. Yeah. Well, there's one specific one, okay, and he's very distinct. He's the guy that did the short video of pretending. Well, he said it was a joke, but like, let's be honest. He claimed that he made a joke about giving homeless people money so that he can get them in trouble, so that they would be off the streets and in jail. And after being called out on it, he said it was a joke. But it's that smug motherfucker. I can't remember his name, and he's not worth the energy. But that guy, he did a video like, "Oh, where are all the women bleeding out in the hospital parking lot?" Yeah, well, they're fucking dead, dude. These women are dead. Yeah, I think that's him, John McEntee. I think that's him right there. Pretty sure that's it. I'm 99% sure. Let me see. Oh, yeah, this guy. Yep, it's him. A former Trump administration aide is facing backlash. He puts a video saying he was helping clean up the community by purpose. Yeah, that's him. That's him. That's the asshole.
I always keep this fake Hollywood money in my car, so when a homeless person asks for money, then I give them like a fake $5 bill, so I feel good about myself, they feel good, and then when they go to use it, they get arrested, so I'm actually like helping clean up the community, you know, getting them off the street.
Oh, what a smug piece of shit.
Now, it's worth noting that McEntee also has kind of a side hustle as the CEO of a right-wing dating app known as The Right Stuff.
So I'm not allowed to use glue traps on mice, but you're allowed to have multiple abortions? I was watching TV yesterday, which I usually don't do, and I noticed something with the commercials. When did everyone in America become black and gay? If white people are so awful, why do you keep moving to their neighborhoods? We live in a world where a kid can't pretend to be an Indian, but a grown man can pretend to be a woman? Do you really think handing over your gun ends gun violence? That's like chopping off your own to stop rape.
Well, he seems nice. I don't know about you, but that guy's probably the last person I would trust to hire anyone.
Yeah, so that smug piece of shit comes to mind. Yeah, McEntee. They're dying. He's the one... he's the one who should go to prison for counterfeiting. Yep. Yeah, and that's illegal, by the way. What he said he supposedly did and then backtracked by saying it was a joke is completely illegal. You're right. Yeah, gross. I mean, yeah, it was pretty clearly a goof, but F this guy for it. Well, yeah, I mean, he's a piece of shit. Like, he's a genuinely piece of shit. Like, this guy is disgusting. But anyways, the point being, like, I'm going off on a tangent, is that that video came to mind where he smugly said, like, oh, we're all the women bleeding out in parking lots because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Yeah, well, they're fucking dying, dude. The most restrictive state laws, experts predicted, would pit doctors' fears of prosecution against their patients' health needs, requiring providers to make sure that their patients was inarguably on the brink of death or facing irreversible harm when they intervene with procedures like a DNC. They would feel the need to wait for a higher blood pressure, wait for a higher fever, really got to justify this one, bleed a little bit more, said Dr. Melissa Kotke, an OBGYN at Emory, warned lawmakers in 2019 during one of the hearings over Georgia's ban. Yeah, we already have a registered death. Correct. This is exactly what we're talking about. Lease Manor. Correct. Doctors and a nurse involved in Thurman's care declined to explain their thinking and did not respond to questions from ProPublica. Communications staff in the hospital did not respond to multiple requests for comment. Georgia's Department of Public Health, which oversees the state of maternal mortality review committee, said it cannot comment on ProPublica's reporting because the committee cases are confidential and protected by federal law. The availability of DNCs for both abortion and routine miscarriages helped save lives after the 1973 Supreme Court ruling Roe v. Wade. Studies show reducing the rate of maternal deaths for women of color by up to 40% the first year after abortion became legal. But since abortion was banned or restricted in 22 states over the past 2 years, women in serious danger have been turned away from emergency rooms and told that they need to be in more peril before doctors could help. Some have been forced to continue high-risk pregnancies that threaten their lives. Those whose pregnancies weren't even viable have been told they could return when they were crashing. Cool. Such stories have been at the center of the upcoming presidential election, during which the right to abortion is on the ballot in at least 10 states. Yeah, pay attention, folks, because like there are several states that are putting this on the ballot. But Republican legislators have rejected small efforts to expand and clarify health exceptions, even in Georgia, which has one of the nation's highest rate of maternal mortality, and where black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications than white women. When its law came into effect in July of 2022, Brian Kemp Governor Brian Kemp said he was overjoyed and believed that his state had found an approach that would keep women safe, healthy, and informed. Oh, and dead, as it turns out, dead. After advocates tried to block the ban in court, arguing the law put women in danger, attorneys for the state of Georgia accused them of hyperbolic fear-mongering. 2 weeks later, Thurman was dead. They fucking killed her. All of them. All of them. Anybody who is advocating for this has to contend with that fact. Thurman, who carried the full load of a single parent, loved being a mother. Every chance she got, she took her son to petting zoos, pop-up museums, and on planned trips like to a Florida beach. The talks I have with my son are everything she posted on social media, but when she learned she was pregnant with twins in the summer of 2022, she quickly decided she needed to preserve her newfound stability. Her best friend, Ricaria Baker, told ProPublica. Thurman and her son had recently moved out of the family home and into a gated apartment complex with a pool, and she was planning to enroll in nursing school. The timing could not have been worse. On July 20th, the day Georgia's law banning abortion 6 weeks went into effect. Her pregnancy had just passed that mark, according to records her family shared with ProPublica. Thurman wanted a surgical abortion close to home and held out hope that as advocates tried to get the ban paused in court, Baker said. But as her pregnancy progressed to its 9th week, she couldn't wait any longer. She scheduled a DNC in North Carolina, where abortion at that stage was still legal, and on August 13th woke up at 4 a.m. to make the journey with her best friend. On their drive, they hit standstill traffic. Baker said the clinic couldn't hold Thurman's spot for longer than 15 minutes. It was inundated with women from other states where bans had taken effect. Instead, a clinic employee offered Thurman a 2-pill abortion regimen approved by the U.S. and Drug Administration, the FDA, mifepristone and misoprostol. Her pregnancy was well within the standard of care for that treatment. Getting to the clinic had required scheduling a day off work, finding a babysitter, and making up an excuse to borrow a relative's car and walking through a crowd of anti-abortion protesters. Thurman didn't want to reschedule. At the clinic, Thurman sat through a counseling session in which she was told how to safely take the pills and instructed to go to the emergency room if complications develop. She signed a release saying she understood. She took the first pill and insisted on driving home before any symptoms started. Baker said she took the second pill the next day as directed. Deaths due to complications from abortion pills are extremely rare. Out of nearly 6 million women who've taken mifepristone in the U.S. since 2000, 32 deaths were reported to the FDA through 2022, regardless whether or not that drug played a role. Of those 11 patients, developed sepsis. Most remaining cases involved intentional and accidental overdoses, suicide, homicide, and ruptured ectopic pregnancies. Baker and Thurman spoke every day after that week. At first, there was only cramping, which Thurman expected, but the day after she took the second pill, the pain increased and blood was soaking through more than 1 pad per hour. If she had lived nearby, the clinic in North Carolina would have performed the DNC for free as soon as she followed up, the executive director told ProPublica, but Thurman was 4 hours away. On the evening of August 18th, Thurman vomited blood and passed out at home, according to 9/11 call logs. Her boyfriend called for an ambulance. Thurman arrived at the Piedmont Henry Hospital in Stockbridge at 6:51. ProPublica obtained... no, it's not a joke. ProPublica obtained the summary narrative of Thurman's hospital stay provided to the Maternal Mortality Review Committee, as well as the group's findings. The narrative is based on Thurman's medical records with identifying information removed. The committee does not review doctors involved with the case or ask hospitals to respond to its findings. ProPublica has also consulted with medical experts, including the members of the committee, about the timeline of events. Within Thurman's first hours at the hospital, which say is staffed at all hours, with an OB who specializes in hospital care, it should have been clear that she was in danger. Her lower abdomen was tender, according to the summary. Her white blood cell count was critically high, and her blood pressure was perilously low. At one point, as Thurman got up to the bathroom, she fainted again and hit her head. Doctors noted a foul foul odor during a pelvic exam, and ultrasound showed possible tissue in her uterus. The standard treatment of sepsis is to start antibiotics and immediately seek and remove the source of the infection. For a septic abortion, that would include removing any tissue from the uterus. One of the hospital's network's own practice describes the DNC as fairly common, minor surgical procedure to be used after a miscarriage to remove fetal tissue. After assessing her at 9:38 p.m., doctors started Thurman on antibiotics and an IV drip. The summary said the OBGYN noticed the possibility of doing a DNC the next day. But then that didn't happen the following morning when an OB diagnosed acute severe sepsis by 5:14 a.m. Thurman's breathing rapidly and at risk of bleeding out, according to her vital signs. Even 5 liters of IV fluid had not moved her blood pressure out of the danger zone, and doctors escalated the antibiotics. Instead of performing the newly criminalized procedure, they continued to gather information and dispense medicine, the summary shows. Doctors had Thurman tested for STDs and pneumonia. They placed her on Levophed, a powerful blood pressure support that could do nothing to treat the infection and posed a new threat. The medication can constrict blood flow so much that the patient would need an amputation once stabilized. At 6:45, Thurman's blood pressure continued to dip, and she was taken to the ICU. At 7:14, doctors discussed a DNC, initiating a DNC, but still didn't happen. 2 hours later, lab work indicated her organs were failing, according to the experts who read her vital signs. At 12:05 p.m., more than 17 hours after she arrived, a doctor who specializes in intensive care notified the OBGYN that her condition was deteriorating. Thurman was finally taken to an operating room at 2 p.m. By then, the situation was so dire that the doctors started with open abdominal surgery. They found that her bowel needed to be removed, but it was too risky to operate because not enough blood was flowing to the area, a possible complication from the blood pressure medication, an expert explained to ProPublica. The OB performed the DNC, but immediately continued with the hysterectomy. During the surgery, Thurman's heart stopped. Her mother was praying in the waiting room when one of the doctors approached, saying, "Come walk with me," she said. Until she got the call from the hospital, her mother had no idea Thurman had been pregnant. She recalled her daughter's last words before she was wheeled into surgery. It made no sense coming from a vibrant young woman who seemed to have her whole life ahead of her. "Promise me you'll take care of my son." There's a good chance providing a DNC earlier could have prevented Amber Thurman's death, the Maternal Mortality Review Committee had concluded. Every state has a committee of experts who meet regularly to examine deaths that occurred during or within a year after pregnancy. The goal is to collect accurate data and identify the root causes of America's increasing maternal mortality rate and translate those lessons into policy change. Their findings and recommendations are sent to the CDC, and their states publish an annual report, but their review of individual cases are never public. Georgia's committee has 32 regular members from a variety of backgrounds, including OBGYNs, cardiologists, mental health providers, medical examiner, health policy experts, and community advocates, and others. This summer, the committee reviewed deaths from fall of 2022, but most states have not gotten that far. Yeah, the story is pretty heart-wrenching. After reviewing Thurman's case, the committee highlighted Piedmont's lack of policy and procedure in place to evacuate the uterus immediately and recommended all hospitals implement policies to treat a septic abortion on an ongoing basis. It's not clear from the records available why doctors waited to provide a DNC to Thurman, though the summary report shows they discussed the procedure at least twice in the hours before they finally did. Piedmont did not have a policy to guide doctors on how to interpret state abortion bans when Thurman arrived for care, according to 2 people with knowledge of the internal conversations who were not authorized to speak publicly. In the months after she died, an internal task force of providers there created policies to educate staff on how to navigate the law, though they're not able to give legal advice. Yeah, her poor son is only like 5. In interviews with more than 36 OBGYNs in states that outlawed abortion, ProPublica learned how difficult it is to interpret the vague and conflicting language and bans medical exceptions, especially, the doctor said, when their judgment could be called into question under threat of prison time. Taking the language in Georgia's supposed life-saving exceptions, it prohibits the doctors from using any instrument with the purpose of terminating a pregnancy. While removing fetal tissue is not terminating a pregnancy, medically speaking, the law only specifies it's not considered an abortion to remove a dead unborn child that resulted from a spontaneous abortion, defined as naturally occurring from a miscarriage or stillbirth. Thurman had told doctors her miscarriage was not spontaneous, it was a result of taking the pills to terminate the pregnancy. There's also an exception included in most bans to allow abortions necessary in order to prevent the death of the pregnant woman or the substantial and irreversible physical impairment of a major bodily function. There's no standard protocol for how providers should interpret such language, the doctor said. How can they be sure a jury with no medical experience would agree that intervening was necessary? Correct. And that's kind of like the point, right? That's exactly the point. They threaten doctors with jail and potentially losing their licenses because of this. ProPublica asked the governor's office on Friday to respond to a case of denied care, including the two abortion-related deaths, and whether its exceptions were adequate. Spokesperson Garrison Douglas said they were clear and gave doctors the power to act in medical emergencies. Right, but like, at what point? At what point, or how would you be able to decide that legally? Would a medical emergency be right when she took the pills and she started feeling bad? Is that a medical emergency? Would a jury agree? Because to a doctor, a medical emergency may constitute one thing, but if a jury doesn't agree, then they're done. They lose their freedom. They get jailed or potentially lose their livelihood. They returned to the state's previous argument, describing ProPublica's reporting as fear-mongering campaign. Republican officials across the country have largely rejected calls to provide guidance. When legislators have tried, anti-abortion groups have blocked them. In 2023, a group of Tennessee Republicans was unable to push through a small change to the state abortion ban, intended to give doctors greater leeway when intervening for patients facing health complications. Quote, no one wants to tell their spouse, child, or loved one that their life is not important in a medical emergency as you watch them die when they could have been saved, said Republican Representative Esther Halton Haynes, a nurse who sponsored the bill. The state's main anti-abortion lobbyist, Will Brewer, vigorously opposed the change. Some pregnancy complications work themselves out, he told a panel of lawmakers. Doctors should be required to pause and wait this out and see how it goes. Well, we see how it goes. And quite frankly, with all due disrespect, it's none of your fucking business. You're not a doctor, dude. Because if you were, you wouldn't be speaking this way. No legitimate doctor would rationale this. It's just absurd. At some hospitals, doctors are doing just that. Doctors told ProPublica they have seen colleagues disregard the standard of care when their patients are at risk of infection and wait to see if a miscarriage completes naturally before offering a D&C. Right, because they're legally their hands are legally tied, essentially. Although no doctor has been prosecuted for violating abortion bans, the possibility looms over every case, they said, particularly outside of well-funded academic institutions that have lawyers promising criminal defense. Doctors in public hospitals and those outside of major metro areas told ProPublica that they are often left scrambling to figure out a case-by-case basis when they are allowed to provide a D&C and other abortion procedures. Many fear that they're taking on all the risk alone and would not be backed up by their hospital if a prosecutor charges them with a crime. At Catholic hospitals, they typically have to transfer patients elsewhere for care. When they do try to provide care, it can be challenging to find other medical staff to participate. A D&C requires an anesthesiologist, nurses, attending physicians, and others. Doctors and peers have refused to participate because of their personal views or fear of being exposed to criminal charges. Georgia law allows medical staff to refuse to participate in abortions. Sorry, but don't be a doctor. Straight up. If this is the attitude that you have, don't be a doctor. And I would say that you should be barred from being a doctor. If that's the type of attitude you have, then being a doctor is just not it's just not for you, and it shouldn't be. Thurman's family members may never learn the exact variables that went into doctors' calculations. The hospital has not fulfilled the request for a full medical record, and there was no autopsy. For years, all Thurman's family had was a death certificate that she died of septic shock and retained products of conception, a rare description that previously only appeared in once in Georgia death records over the last 15 years. ProPublica found the family learned that Thurman's case had been reviewed and deemed preventable from ProPublica's reporting. The sting of Thurman's death remains extremely raw to her loved ones who feel her absence most deeply as they watch her son grow taller and lose teeth and start school year without her. They focus on surrounding him with love, but know nothing can replace his mother. On Monday, she would have turned 31. Younger than I am. Younger than I am. All because of theocratic fascists wanting to impose their will on the rest of us. All right, folks, we got a few more articles to go through. Gavin Newsom signs an election deepfake ban to rebuke to Elon Musk. Governor Gavin Newsom signed the country's toughest law banning digitally altered political deepfakes on Tuesday, following through on a vow to act after rebuking Elon Musk for sharing a doctored video of Vice President Kamala Harris. Honestly, I'm okay with this, to be honest. If you're... for political advertising and political media, if you're using deepfakes, like, nah, that's not okay. That's not okay. The new California law, which will take effect before the November election, channels rising alarm about artificial intelligence capacity to disrupt the election by sowing misinformation, with voters increasingly confronted with deepfake images and audio impersonating candidates. Musk, who owns Twitter, stoked that debate when he shared an AI-altered video of Harris in July, drawing Newsom's public promise to prohibit similar practices. Quote, I could care less if it was Harris or Trump, Newsom told Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff during a conversation on Tuesday. It was wrong on every level. Newsom also signed a companion bill on Tuesday that targets deepfakes by compelling platforms to pull down such content when users flag them, although that bill will not take effect until next year. He signed the third masquerading measure. Jeez. You guys have Politico. He signed a third measure requiring disclaimers on political ads that use AI. That's important. I think like that's important. The new law helps cement California's leading role in regulating emergent AI, even as the state's homegrown tech industry has pushed back and blocked some laws. Democratic state lawmakers have embraced those efforts as the divided Congress struggles to advance in any meaningful legislation, and concerns about AI's potentially anti-democratic downsides reverberate around the world. Newsom signed the measures on the same day the Democratic Representative Adam Schiff, the frontrunner to become California's next senator, helped introduce a similar bill to ban fraudulent AI campaign ads. Deputy U.S. Attorney General Lisa Monaco highlighted AI threats, including those emanating from foreign adversaries, during Politico's AI and Tech Summit. It is the ultimate double-edged sword. It holds great promise, but also exceptional peril, because it's lowering the barrier for entry for all sorts of malicious actors. There'll be changes in the law, and I'm confident over time. The California ban on campaign deepfakes will allow courts to issue injunctions blocking people from distributing intentionally deceptive political content during election season, and it exposes people who share deepfakes to civil penalties. Yeah, I think this is fine, honestly. I think this is fine. The bill is intentionally written to take effect before the November election. Assemblyman Gail Paliran, a Santa Cruz Democrat and former county election official who carried the bill, has repeatedly warned that the 2024 cycle represented the nation's first AI election. The measure also includes the deceptive content about election officials to shield against candidates and often and others targeting poll workers in the aftermath of elections, as former President Trump has explicitly done. The debate about AI in politics has set concerns about misinformation and election integrity against warnings about eroding free speech protections. Tech companies have argued restrictions on AI alterations may undercut the First Amendment, and Musk noted on Twitter in a reply to Newsom that parody is legal in America. Yeah, but that's not what they're talking about, though, right? Like, they're not talking about banning parody. They're talking about using deepfake AI to pass off as real to deceive people, essentially. That's what this is about. And given the circumstances, honestly, like, I'm okay with that. I wish there was a more national movement for this. Because it is pretty freaking pernicious, if I do say so myself. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people that believe, you know, the deep fake stuff that's going around, and take it as legitimate. We have good news, folks. Kentucky governor signs executive order banning conversion therapy. Yeah. In 2024, no doubt, but a welcome update. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear signed an executive order on Wednesday banning the scientifically discredited practice of so-called conversion therapy on minors in the state. The state now joins 23 others where the debunked mental health treatment, which aims to change the sexual orientation of gender or gender identity of LGBTQ people, is banned for minors according to the LGBTQ think tank Movement Advance Project. The executive order went into effect immediately. Kentucky cannot possibly reach its full potential unless it's free from discrimination by or against any citizen, unless all our people feel welcome in our space, free from unjust barriers, and supported to be themselves, said Beshear, a Democrat, in a statement. Conversion therapy has no basis in medicine or science, and it can cause significant long-term harm to our kids, including increased rates of suicide and depression. This is about protecting our youth from an inhumane practice that hurts them. True. True. LGBTQ advocates have denounced and disputed the disputed treatment for years, citing research that shows conversion therapy can increase risks of mental health issues. As many as 15% of LGBTQ youths have been subjected or threatened with conversion therapy, according to a 2023 survey of more than 28,000 queer Americans from ages 13 to 24 by the Trevor Project, an advocacy group that aims to prevent suicide among LGBTQ youth. The same survey, which the governor office cited in his statement, found that 54% of LGBTQ youths who attempted suicide in the year prior were threatened with or subjected to conversion therapy. Advocates for the Trevor Project praised the governor's signing of the measure. As a proud queer person who grew up in Kentucky, I'm thrilled to see the governor take action to protect LGBTQ+ young people from conversion therapy, an abusive practice that harmed too many of us for too long across the Commonwealth, said Tanner Mobley, the manager of the state advocacy and conversion therapy campaigns at the Trevor Project, said in a statement. Beshear's executive order comes amid the introduction of a historic number of anti-LGBTQ bills in the state legislature across the country this year. State lawmakers have weighed 530 anti-LGBTQ measures this year, according to the tally by the American Civil Liberties Union. Nice. Based. Folks, this is why it's so important to participate in your local elections, okay? This is why it's so important to participate in your local elections. Because, like, it matters. It matters. Well, Andy Bashir is not perfect. Victories like this matter, I think. Victories like this matter. All right, folks. U.S. Senator Foghorn Leghorn accuses Muslim advocate of supporting extremism and hearing on hate. U.S. Republican Senator John Foghorn Leghorn Kennedy accused a leading Muslim civil rights advocate of supporting extremism during a Senate hearing on hate incidents in the U.S., drawing criticism from many rights groups. And you know what? I'll just play the exchange because this is truly astounding.
And according to your website, you're also, I'm going to quote here, a longtime Democratic Party activist who served as a member of the 2016 Democratic National Convention's Platform Standing Committee, close quote. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Hello, lovely scientist. Yeah, this a-hole. Yep. Mind you, this is a hearing on hate, okay?
You support Hamas, do you not?
Senator, oddly enough.
Like, this is freaking disgusting, man. Let me see if the video on Twitter is louder. Yep. I'm gonna give you, and then Senator Foghorn Leghorn gave us that wonderful quote that he read on the floor. We actually went over it, Dan Anonymously. We actually went over that. This is the same dude that gave us that wonderful quote. Yeah, that's the same dude.
And according to your website, you're also, I'm going to quote here.
Yeah, back to McCarthyism. Okay, so this is not any louder. No, I need to figure out how to make these things louder. I had an extension for it and it just wouldn't work anymore, so I deleted the extension, but anyways, we're just going to power through it. All right, Foghorn.
Enough. I'm going to say thank you for that question because it demonstrates the purpose of our hearing today in a very
Let's start
effective
first
way.
with a yes or no.
Hamas is a foreign terrorist organization that I do not support, but you asking the executive director of the Arab American Institute that question very much puts the focus on the issue of hate in our country.
Correct. That was a beautiful response. I love that. I love that. Hello, lovely scientist, subscribing for a tier 1 for 6 months. Thank you so much. I appreciate that support. Thank you. Thank you. She did well. Yeah, that was a perfect response. That was a perfect response. Like, hey, just so you know, this hearing is about hate, and I'm so glad that you asked that question because, you know. Yeah, and she said she doesn't, like, multiple times, and he just kept going. This is yeah, he just kept going.
I got your answer, and I appreciate it.
Well, apparently not, because you kept going. Foghorn.
What is the you support Hezbollah too, don't you?
Again, I find this line of questioning extraordinarily disappointing,
Is that a
Senator.
no?
That
Or
you have Arab American constituents that you represent
is
in your
that
great state.
Yes, ma'am, I understand that, but my time's limited, and I apologize. But is that a yes or a no?
A yes or no question to do I support Hezbollah? The answer is I don't support violence, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, or any other entity that invokes
You
it.
can't
So
bring
no,
yourself to say no, can you?
No, I can say no. I can say yes.
But
What
you
I can
haven't.
say is
You just
your
can't
line
make
of
yourself do
questioning.
it. Do you
Senator.
support or oppose Iran and their hatred of Jews?
Again, I'm going to emphasize.
Jesus Christ. Twitch doesn't like that bluntness. Yeah, I know, but it's a quote from this clown over here. It's a quote from Foghorn.
Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, none of them is going to this
You
discussion.
can't bring yourself to say no, can
Sir,
you?
I don't support.
It's real simple.
Excuse me. I'm going to,
Ian,
if I may, as a Muslim
no.
woman, sir, I'm going to tell you I do not support Iran. But what I will tell you is that this conversation.
I'm running out of time. I'm
Okay.
sorry. You called our decision to cut funding.
Like, how is this guy even taken remotely seriously in Congress? This is a freaking sitting, senator. This is a sitting senator of the United States, okay? Like asking the Singaporean dude what kind of Chinese he was. Yeah, the same energy, honestly. Same freaking energy. And this is a sitting U.S. senator. A sitting U.S. senator.
You called our decision to cut fund. Well, first, what's the United Nations Relief and Works Agency?
It's UNRWA, which is the institution that exists to provide services and aid to the nearly 6 million Palestinian refugees.
And you called our decision to cut funding for them, quote, an incredible moral failure, close quote.
That is absolutely correct. But again, I would suggest that conversation is about foreign policy.
We did that because 9 UNRWA staff members were fired for actually helping Hamas on October 7th. Isn't that the case?
I don't believe that that's correct in terms
Let me
of...
ask you one more time. You support Hamas, don't you? You
Sir.
support UNRWA and Hamas, don't you?
Sir, please. I think it's exceptionally disappointing that you're looking at an Arab American witness before you and saying you support Hamas.
You know what's disappointing to me?
I do not support Hamas.
Bring yourself
I do
to
not
say
support Hamas.
You don't
or
support UNRWA. You don't support Hamas. You don't.
I was very clear in my support for UNRWA.
Hezbollah, and you don't support Iran. You should hide your head in a bag.
Which is pretty freaking disgusting, by the way. For him to say that. Sitting senator of the United States. By the way. Multiple rights advocates denounced Senator Kennedy. Quote, it's absolutely reprehensible that a U.S. senator would weaponize the racial identity of a witness and accuse her of supporting terrorism by using an anti-Arab and anti-Muslim trope in a hearing meant to tackle precisely that kind of bigotry, said the Council of American Islamic Relations Government Affairs Director Robert McCaw told Reuters. This harassment is alarming, said Muslim American advocacy group Engage Action. The Democratic-led Senate Judiciary Committee, which organized Tuesday's hearing, also condemned the senator, called Berry's response to him powerful. The people that are making that performance will lap that up for. That's true. Like in a black bag shoved in a black van. Even retweet is with the title Republican dunks on woke liberal. Yeah, of course they're gonna see it that way. Of course they're gonna see it that way. A Senate Republican told an Arab American civil rights leader that you should hide your head in a bag. We will not amplify that horrible clip, but we will amplify the witness' powerful response by calling it out. Yeah, I think that, like, now that I'm kind of reading it again, is he making the xenophobic response? Like, is he referencing a hijab? Is he referencing a hijab? Because that's what it sounds like. Given like the context and who this guy is, he might have been referencing a hijab. I don't know. I thought it was you should Roblox yourself. I don't know. Rights advocates have warned about rising threats to American Muslims, Arabs, and Jewish people since the eruption of Israel wars on Gaza following the Hamas October 7 attack. U.S. incidents in recent months include attempting drowning of a 3-year-old Muslim girl in Texas, the fatal stabbing of the 6-year-old Muslim boy, then a stabbing of a Muslim man in Texas, a beating of a Muslim man in New York, threats of violence against Jews in Cornell University that led to a conviction and sentencing, an unsuccessful plot to attack a New York City Jewish center. Yeah, so this meeting was about hate, and yeah. Foghorn Leghorn here couldn't help himself. Absolutely despicable. All right, folks, we turn our attention to Arizona. This is, by the way, for state and local elections. So if you live in Arizona or know somebody in Arizona, this is kind of important. A records flaw could block thousands in Arizona from voting in state and local races. Election officials in Arizona have discovered a flaw in the state's voter registration system that could disqualify nearly 100,000 people from voting in state and local races just weeks before early ballots would hit mailboxes. A state law that went into effect in 2004 requires Arizona voters to provide proof of citizenship to register to vote in state and local elections, though individuals that do not provide that proof can still register to vote for federal offices like President and U.S. Senate using a federal form only. Arizona's voter registration system pulls information from the state's driver's license database as a method of proving citizenship, but the Maricopa County Records Office found a flaw with the database, which showed that some people provided proof of citizenship when they applied for a driver's license when in fact they may not have. The issue affects just a tiny fraction of roughly 4.1 million people registered to vote in Arizona, roughly 98,000 voters who got a license before October of 1996, said Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes on Tuesday. That's the day when Arizona started requiring proof of legal presence in the U.S. to get a driver's license. Maricopa County Recorder Stephen Richer, who oversees early voting and voting registration in the nation's fourth largest county, said his office discovered a glitch in the system while verifying the citizenship of a person with a pre-1996 license. The office found that the person was a lawful permanent resident but not a citizen eligible to vote. Fontes said there's no evidence that that person voted or attempted to cast a ballot, but the discovery sent election officials in Arizona down a rabbit hole that revealed tens of thousands of voters in every county, and the state have not provided the documentation required to vote a full ballot under Arizona law. That doesn't mean those people aren't eligible to vote, though. This was discovered not because somebody was voting illegally and not because somebody was attempting to vote illegally. As far as we can tell, this is basic voter roller maintenance. Now, Richard, like this, let's just be clear. Like this was caused because Arizona has decided that they were going to have a 2-tier system for reasons, and when this didn't need to be the case in the first place. Also, like this goes to the point that if no matter where you live, please check your registration. There's less than 2 months to go. Please check your registration, especially with local and state elections. That's very important. That's very important. Very, very important. Please check your stuff because, like, it's so important, especially with, like, nonsense like this. There's plenty of time now to make sure. Now, Richer and Fontes are asking the Arizona Supreme Court to decide how to deal with the voters affected by this revelation. In an emergency petition filed with the court, Richer, a Republican who had defended the county's election system for critics like former President Trump, argues that 98,000 votes should not only be allowed to vote in federal elections unless they provide should only be allowed to vote in federal elections unless they provide proof of citizenship by election day. It is my position that these registrants have not satisfied Arizona's documented proof of citizenship law and therefore can only vote a federal-only ballot who was defeated in this year's Republican primary by a Trump ally. The federal-only status would allow them to vote in races like presidential contests between Trump and Vice President Harris, but also prevent those voters from weighing in on a lengthy list of proposed laws going before Arizona voters this year, including a measure to put abortion rights into the state constitution. This is why it's so friggin' important, folks. This is why it's important. You know, and it's also, like, completely baffling that somehow you would be allowed, okay, this is so back-asswards, that somehow you would be allowed to vote, okay, in the federal elections, but not the state because of some nonsense that they decided to do, creating this two-tier system, where you would somehow be required to provide proof of citizenship to vote in the state election, but not the federal, which you would be eligible to vote and you would be legally perfectly able to vote. Like, if you're perfectly able to vote in the federal level, like, it goes to show by default you're already a citizen. Like, by default that it's already, like, implied. So why shouldn't you be allowed to vote in the state and local level? It is absurd. Fontes, a Democrat, called Richards filing a friendly litigation, saying their offices coordinated the legal effort in order to obtain a firm legal ruling about how to proceed. But Fontes is taking a different position than his Republican counterpart. He said his office plans to file a reply with the court asking it to allow the 98,000 impacted voters to vote a full ballot this year. He said it was too close of an election to make these type of changes to the voter rolls, and he doesn't believe there's evidence that a significant number of the affected individuals are not eligible to vote. By the way, every single one of these voters have met the minimum criteria, swearing an affirmation under the penalty of perjury that they would have to vote, that they would have to do to vote in every election across the rest of the United States of America, he said, adding that only Arizona requires additional proof of citizenship to vote, specifically, again, for these state and local elections, which, again, in this particular case, by the way, it's extremely important because there's certain things that are important to vote on, like the ballot measure to put abortion rights into the state constitution. He said he hopes to have a ruling by the end of the week as the state begins to send ballots to overseas citizens and military personnel. If that is impossible, he hopes for a ruling before the state begins sending out an early mail-in ballots by October 9th. Fontes acknowledged that publicly disclosing the problem with the voter registration system is likely to inflame the already high tensions in Arizona and Maricopa County, hotbeds for unproven allegations of voter fraud following Trump's loss to President Biden in 2020. This has already spurred new conspiracy theories about the election, but those conspiracy theories are just as good as all the other conspiracy theories are. We had the facts and we're bringing them forward in a very transparent way. But Fontes said election officials had no choice other than to go public. We are being open and transparent in bringing this issue forward, he said. We are making absolutely certain that folks understand that good, bad, or indifferent, we're going to keep the public informed. Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs, a Democrat and former Secretary of State, said the Arizona Department of Transportation's Motor Vehicle Division fixed the problem with the driver's license database. After recorder Richie brought an erroneous voter registration record to my attention, my team identified and fixed the administrative error that originated in 2004 and affects longtime residents who have received the driver's license before 1996. Fonta said the fix will solve the problem moving forward. Yeah, so this is incredibly important, folks. If you live in the state of Arizona or know somebody that lives there, just out of an abundance of caution, check your stuff or advise the people that live there to check their registration, just to make sure. Don't let these clowns take away your voice with these nonsensical laws, with this nonsensical two-tier system. Make sure that everything is in order, and make sure that you show up to the ballot box, because some of these things are incredibly important, and some of which you have direct impact on. So yeah, make sure everything's good to go. There are weeks, folks, less than 60 days at this point until the election, and some things are quite important, and you still have some tools available. We still have some tools available, depending on what state you live in. Currently, there are 10 states that have abortion ballot initiatives or ballot measures. So if you live in any one of those 10 states, I would highly recommend to make sure that you show up for that. That's just wild. I think Arizona, the article mentioned Arizona is the only one that does this for state elections, which is wild. All right, folks. It's time for me to get going. Thank you all for stopping by. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for the support. Thank you, Kami, and Hello Lovely Scientist for the tier 1 subs. I appreciate it. You guys are what makes this channel grow. Thank you all for hanging out. Thank you to all the new follows. I appreciate it. Loving the stream. Thank you. I appreciate that, Zeoduke. Thank you all. If you guys want to support the channel, there are many different ways. Please consider liking the stream on the YouTube. If you're on the YouTube and you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. We're almost there, folks. One more subscriber to 260. Thank you. Thank you, Michael Hassler, for modding the chat. I appreciate it. If you guys want to keep supporting the channel, consider checking out the merch store and hitting ! tip to tip your streamer. Also, folks, if you find any clips that are interesting or find any moments that are interesting in the stream, hit the clip button. Hit the clip button, okay? I appreciate your support. As always, folks, I like that emote. We'll be back. Yeah, thanks, Tina Peeps. Exactly. Thank you also to Tina for rating the stream. I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing your wonderful community over as well. And we'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern time. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Yeah, and it's a chap for rating them. The chap is a good chap. See ya! Thank you, Kamikaze. All right, folks, hang tight. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.